I hope everyone can see us. Last year I was in orange and the back was orange LED, and today I'm not visible in red. But that's okay, please focus on my guests. Good moin, as we say in Hamburg. Moin to you. Thank you for introducing Pattie and Stephan. So good to have you here. I want to say a few words about the two and what they do before we start. And so Pattie is professor at MIT Media Lab, and I'm reading this to get it right. Pattie is studying and designing the interaction between people and AI, looking especially at the consequences of human use of AI in order to, and now it comes, suggest new designs, methods, and experiences for human-facing AI systems that lead to more desirable human outcomes. And she's also a pioneer in software agents, which she's been talking about for over 30 years. That's a handful. Welcome. Thanks, Pattie, for being here. Stephan Durach is a Senior Vice President, Connected Company Development at BMW, where he leads the development and design of what BMW calls software-defined vehicles and the future of human-machine interaction in the automotive industry. Welcome, you two. And I really want to go, dive in directly and go hands-on first with you, Stephan. We heard you just introduced the Neue Klasse 2025 at CES. So it's coming out as introducing even more advanced technology to your vehicle line than ever before. And before this panel, we spoke a bit about, you mentioned that your goal was to make technology available in the most meaningful way in a BMW. So my question, first question is, how does BMW approach human-machine interaction in Neue Klasse? What were the questions that you asked yourself as a design team? And of course, what were the challenges?
Okay, I think the car is a very, very specific environment where you are in, and people are really used to interact with their products, for different purposes. You have your laptop at home, you typically use a keyboard to writing long letters and stuff like this. You have your tablet, what you typically use to consume content. You have your phone, your multi-purpose device, which you can do everything. And from my perspective, you have a fourth device, which is really important, or maybe your first device, which is your car, which gets you comfortably from A to B. But at that point in time, you don't want to have an interruption of your daily behavior or daily routine. And you want to have access to the same services you have when you have in your daily life. So actually, I don't like the comparison. A car is a smartphone on wheels. It's not. It's something different. It's still a piece of your individual mobility, which gets you in the most comfortable way, in our case, in the most sporty way, from A to B. And certainly, it should not be an interruption of your daily life. And then the next question is, how do you make this kind of content and functionality accessible in a meaningful way in the automotive environment? And it's a completely different environment with a different purpose. So you want to have the same access, the same functionality, the same information, but in a different way. And when we were taking a look at our next generation, what we called our Neue Klasse, we thought, what is the best way of doing it? Certainly it's easy, just put a big screen there. But at the end of the day, I think your car is your last private space. It's your living room. And you don't want to sit in the living room only with the television. So it's about the interior design, what freedom of degree you can generate. And at the same point in time, you can offer this kind of information. So we came up with an idea. We are the head-up company, so to speak. We introduced it already 20 years ago. And we tried to take it to the next level. So we came up with our panoramic vision, which is a pillar-to-pillar projection surface in the front of your car, which gives you a huge freedom of degree on the design of the interior of the car. So our philosophy is always hands on the wheels, eyes on the road. And the task is to display the right information at the right point in time, at the right location. It should not be too distracting, but it should be entertainment, easy to use, and amusement at the same time.
Yeah. I remember when we talked first, you said you want people to have the technology there when they want it and when it is needed, and not there when it is not needed and not wanted. It's like what amount of technology has to be, do they want in their face or not? Pattie, you are looking at emerging tech and especially AI from a more of a meta level in your research, especially when it comes to the future with AI. We know there's so many challenges. I mean, we talked about it before this panel. So it really comes to how to develop AI responsibly, societal, ethically, of course. And we wanted to look a bit at the solutions that you are working on. So what are your thoughts and findings about what technology, especially AI, needs in order to create positive and meaningful impact in this machine-human interaction?
Yeah, thank you. AI is primarily presented as an engineering challenge right now. We are trying to reach AGI and make AI smarter, more accurate, more safe, more efficient, etc. But I believe that if AI is going to be pervasive and impact all of our lives in the car and at work, at home and beyond, that it is really important that we think of AI also as a human design problem. AI will have a major impact on people, on the human experience. And I think it's important that we design and deploy AI in such a way that it will result in the desirable outcomes for people. Now, today's dominant sort of AI, the LLMs and the chatbots, actually are not, while they're designed supposedly to help people and augment people, in our studies at MIT, we see that they actually often have the opposite effect. People no longer think critically and think for themselves when they have an AI readily available to delegate their thinking to. So we have done studies, for example, that show that people, when they have AI at their fingertips, are less creative. They come up with fewer different solutions to problems than when they don't have AI available. So I think it's critical that we think about the consequences of using AI pervasively in our lives. What are going to be the human consequences, and how can we design interfaces to AI so that they encourage us still to think for ourselves, to understand our world, to develop our own skills and expertise, and to be creative?
Yeah, thank you. Stephan, what are your thoughts on this, especially when it comes to interacting with a product or device, or in your case, the car? Like, what role do you see for AI in this space?
Yeah, I think you really had a pretty good point. It's a really, really powerful tool, but somehow you have to put it in the right context. And especially if you're interacting with the machine, the car like we discussed, it's often, or the main task is about predictability. I want to understand what's happening next. Certainly we all like surprises when they are nice, but we don't like surprises if they are not in a good way. And it must be very rational and predictable for the customer. And this is actually a huge challenge. How do you actually ring fence all this kind of functionality, only use it in certain environment, and not just let it go? Because I think a lot of things will happen then. It doesn't even have to hallucinate, but it had to do different things you wouldn't expect. So predictability is really important for us. And I think it's a powerful tool. It has a lot of potential, but at the same time, there's a risk involved. Nothing to be scared of, but you really have to be sensible in what kind of context you're using it.
Yeah. Well, before the talk, we talked briefly about the role of AI in design and creativity, and you had some really interesting thoughts about that. Maybe you want to elaborate on this a bit.
Yeah, I think that AI should, again, encourage us more to be thinkers, creators, and that's not impossible, actually. Right now, the design, not in BMW cars, but of chat interfaces and so on, is one where you have to think carefully about your prompt, and then you get this very verbose, overly confident answer from AI, whether it's correct or not, and it doesn't exactly encourage you to like engage or to think for yourself. So I think AI should almost act more like a wise Socratic tutor or something, especially in situations where you want to benefit from the intelligence of both people and the machine. It's important that the AI engages us. We have done experiments that show that if AI asks you questions first about the problem that you're trying to solve, rather than immediately giving you a complete answer, it actually results in better outcomes because you really benefit from both of these intelligences rather than just delegating thinking to AI.
Yeah. I think when we have experts like you two in your specific fields on a stage, everyone's always asking about like what's next. So what's the next thing that's to come? So here's two questions that I would kind of, and it seems, I think there will be longer answers. So what do you see as the biggest challenges that technology and AI will pose in the next upcoming years, and also what steps should we already need to take today in order to reach really meaningful and positive impact? Because I would really like us to find like a positive solution, positive view, but what's necessary in order to get there? Maybe Stephan, you wanna?
When you anticipate what technology can do, you always ask the question, we talked about this before, what is happening in 20 years? And if you imagine what's happening in 20 years, then it's happening in the next 5. There's a super acceleration in this process. And I think I really like Pattie point to say, okay, we really have to make sure that we are super critical by where to use this kind of technology and at the right point in time. From my perspective, it's a little bit, if you take a look at the technology landscape today, there is already so many possibilities where you can combine different technology to create new things. It's a little bit like cooking. You need the right recipe, what you take and what you don't take. Yeah. And if you take a little bit too much of something, it doesn't taste not very good. And this is actually, in every step, in every evolution step, you really have to rethink, do I really make the experience of the customer a better experience? Because like we said at the beginning, more of everything is not always helping. Simple example, putting a huge screen in there is nice, but it's not helping because it's even more confusing and more distracting, or not giving you enough room. So the biggest challenge right now from my perspective is really like to define a hierarchy of technology and access to it and make it for the end customer predictable and giving him the choice what he wants to do or what he don't want to do. It's like the same thing we discussed years ago about your personal data and how do you manage your personal data. It's the same question we'll ask on AI. How much AI do I want? Where do I want to take my own decision? Where do I only want to have support? Or maybe sometimes I want a simple, really solution for this. And this is actually the trickiest part from my perspective. Not to say, give me a solution, but finding in the right context the right approach to solve the problem.
Yeah. You mentioned, I remember that in China, you found out that people are actually using their cars for very different things than driving, and just like knowing they're sitting in the car, but they're not driving anywhere. So also, I guess, the way people behave, the meaning that these environments have for them is changing, and it's really exciting to see in the future how you as a company will, define and redefine also these intimate spaces. Pattie, over to you. What do you think is the biggest challenge in technology or your field, and what do we need to do today in order to make this meaningful and positive in the future?
Yeah, I must say, first responding to Stephan, that I really appreciate the philosophy that you guys and the design philosophy you are following at BMW of making things minimal, more an augmentation, very predictable, etc. You are really putting ultimately the user at the center of the experience and their interests. And I think that's what we have to do in general with AI. I feel that right now AI development is not being driven to augment ultimately humanity. It's maybe all about, I don't know, power and profits eventually or something, but we're not developing AI with the humanity in mind and the best outcomes for humanity in mind. And so I wish that we would have more conversations about how we can design AI, how we can fit it in our lives, how we can give it to children in schools, etc., so that ultimately the human experience is improved.
Yeah.
And that is not at all happening right now. And I've been in UI design long enough. I was there when we had the whole smartphone revolution, social media, etc. We always thought that these things would have positive effects on our lives, and we've learned the hard way what all the negative consequences are of these technologies, people being isolated, talking less to each other, polarization, misinformation, all of these things. I think AI is going to have the same effects, except many times multiplied. I think it will have a very, very negative effect on the human experience, on our emotional and social well-being. And I'm very worried about that. And it seems that, again, the developers of AI who are running full speed and deploying things left and right before they're ready to be deployed are just not thinking about this, and they think that AI is going to solve all our problems, solve cancer, solve longevity, I guess, as well, solve climate problems, etc. I personally believe that the effects will be much more negative, especially at a social and emotional well-being level for people.
So in order to find a positive way out, what do you think is needed in order to not
I think we
go
need
there?
We need more discussions about what we want to accomplish in the first place with AI, how we want this to fit in people's lives. We also need, there's no one size fits all for AI. We need to think carefully about how AI is used in schools, more like that Socratic tutor that asks questions of a student to engage them, to encourage them to think for themselves, to develop their own creativity, etc. I feel that all of this, all the money and so on, is going to the development of these AGI models that will ruin our world rather than sort of...
I hope not, actually. So this, just so you know, everyone who's working in AI in this room, please know you have a responsibility, and we really hope that everyone working in AI, hearing this, hearing you, and it's rightfully a criticism about what we see in AI today, but we know that there's also a really good spark in humans, so let's embrace that, I guess. And also, do we see collaboration here maybe soon?
Sure.
We hope.
Always looking for more funding to do research.
We too. Thank you all for being here. Thank you too. It was a pleasure. I hope you had some insights into what's happening, and wish you all a really, really good DLD rest of the day. And yeah, future is hopefully positive also in AI. Thank you so much for listening.